I noticed something was wrong before I even got out of the car. My neighbor's dog, the old beagle that always ran to the fence when I pulled in, wasn't there. That sounds like nothing. I know that sounds like nothing. But Mrs. Alderman's dog had greeted me every single day for 6 years, and the absence of him standing at that chain-link fence, tail going in circles, made something cold move through my chest before I could name why. I sat in the driveway for a moment with the engine running. Then I saw the lockbox. There was a bright blue lockbox clamped to my front door handle, the kind realtors use, the kind that means the house is listed, the kind that means someone has given someone else permission to walk through your home while you're at work. I turned off the engine. I got out. I walked to my front door the way you walk when your legs are moving, but your brain hasn't caught up yet. I touched the lockbox. It was cold and solid and absolutely real. There was a small paper flyer tucked under the corner of the welcome mat, the one my daughter painted when she was 7, the one that says "Home is where Mom is" in uneven purple letters. I picked up the flyer. It was a property listing sheet. My address was printed at the top in clean, professional font. Below it were photographs of my living room, my kitchen, my backyard with the raised garden beds I built myself the summer after my divorce. The listing price was $347,000. The contact agent's name was someone I had never heard of. And at the very bottom, in the small print under seller information, was my brother's name. Not mine, his. I read it 3 times. I stood on my own front porch and read my brother's name, listed as the seller of my house, 3 separate times. And each time the words rearranged themselves the same way. I called him. He didn't pick up. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, "Call me right now." I stood there watching the screen. And after about 90 seconds, the 3 dots appeared, and then disappeared, and then appeared again. Then, nothing. I called my sister instead. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, did you talk to?" "Did you know?" I said. Silence. "Did you know?" I said again, quieter this time. "He said you agreed to it," she said. "He said you two had a deal." He said. I hung up. I went inside. The house looked exactly the same. My furniture, my photos on the wall, my daughter's drawing still held to the refrigerator with alphabet magnets. Nothing had been moved or packed or touched. But someone had been through here. I could feel it the way you can feel when someone has been in a room. The closet door in the hallway was open 2 inches. It is never open 2 inches. I close it all the way every single morning because the hinge squeaks, and I don't want to hear it in the middle of the night. I sat down on my kitchen floor. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the light in the room to shift? Long enough to stop shaking? Then I got up and I started thinking, I bought this house 7 years ago. I was 31 years old, newly divorced, and I'd been saving since I was 24 because I always knew that a home was the one thing no one could take from you if you did everything right. I put 20% down. I paid every mortgage payment on time. I refinanced once when the rates dropped, and I made sure my name alone, was on every document. My brother had been between jobs for most of those 7 years. Not between jobs the way people are sometimes between jobs, where there's a gap and then a landing. Between jobs the way that means he borrowed money and didn't pay it back and moved in with people and overstayed and had explanations for everything that sounded reasonable until you added them all up. He borrowed $4,000 from me the year I bought the house, for what he said was a car repair. He never mentioned it again. Neither did I, because I had learned not to. 18 months ago, he had called me and said he found an investor interested in the property market in our area, and would I consider selling and splitting the profits, since we were family and family looked out for each other. I said no. I said it clearly and without apology. He said I was being selfish. I said goodbye and hung up. I had not thought about that conversation again until this moment, sitting on my kitchen floor, holding a listing sheet with his name on it. I got up. I got my laptop. I went to the county property records website and typed in my address. What came back made me sit very still for a long time. The deed of record still showed my name, but there was a pending document filed 4 days ago that I had never authorized. A quitclaim deed, executed with my signature, transferring partial ownership interest to my brother and listing him as co-owner with right of survivorship. My signature, my notary stamp, my date of birth in the right field, none of which I had ever signed. I took a screenshot. I took 3 screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I saved the listing sheet. I went to my filing cabinet and pulled out my original deed, the one I had put in a fireproof box the day I closed, because my mother always said, put your important papers somewhere fire can't reach them, and I photographed every page and saved those too. Then I called a real estate attorney. I didn't know a real estate attorney. I Googled one. Her office was 20 minutes away, and she had reviews that mentioned words like fought for her client and didn't back down, and that was enough for me. I called. Her assistant said she had an opening the next morning at 8. I said I needed to speak with someone today. I said it was urgent, and I explained why in 2 sentences. There was a pause, and then the assistant said, "Hold on." The attorney herself came on the line 4 minutes later. I explained what I had found. She was quiet while I talked. She asked 2 clarifying questions. Had I ever signed a quitclaim deed? Had I ever given anyone power of attorney? No. No. She said, "Go to the county recorder's office before they close today. Get a certified copy of that filed document. Ask them to flag the file. Do not confront your brother until you have that." I looked at the clock. It was 4:12. The county recorder's office closed at 5. I was in my car before she finished the sentence. I drove the way you drive when your hands know what to do, but your mind is somewhere else entirely. I kept both hands on the wheel. I kept the radio off. I went over everything I knew. The filing date, the listing date, the name of the realtor, the name on the lockbox. I thought about my brother's voice 18 months ago. Family looks out for each other, and the way he had said it like a threat dressed up as sentiment. The county recorder's office was a beige building downtown that I had been in exactly once before, the day I closed on my house. There was a woman at the front desk with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a stack of folders on her left side. I told her my address. I told her I needed a certified copy of a recently filed quitclaim deed. She typed. She waited. She typed again. She stopped. She took her reading glasses off, set them on the desk, and looked at me directly. "When did you say this was filed?" 4 days ago, I said. She typed something else. She looked at the screen. She looked at me again. "Can I see your ID?" I handed her my driver's license. She compared it to whatever was on her screen. Something shifted in her posture. The professional neutrality that county clerks carry like a uniform loosened just slightly, and what came through underneath it was not quite alarm, but something adjacent to it. "Ma'am," she said, lowering her voice. "Did you come in here last Thursday, around 6 in the evening?" "No," I said. "This office closes at 5. She looked at me for a moment. "We have a situation," she said. "I need to get my supervisor." She went through a door behind the desk. I stood at the counter and breathed. There was a man behind me in line with a manila envelope under his arm, waiting patiently, and the normalcy of him standing there, just a regular person with a regular errand, felt very far away. The clerk came back with a woman in her 50s wearing a county ID badge that said Deputy Recorder Diane Marsh. Diane Marsh had the look of someone who had been in this office long enough to have seen most things and been surprised by very few of them. She looked at me the way people look at situations they have been trained to handle. "You're the homeowner of record," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "And you did not authorize a quitclaim deed?" "No." "And you did not sign any document before a notary in the last 30 days?" "No." She turned the monitor slightly so I could see the screen. There was a scanned document, the quitclaim deed with my signature on it, notarized, dated 4 days ago. She pointed to the notary stamp. "Do you recognize this notary?" I looked. The name was one I didn't know. The commission number was there. The stamp looked real. "No," I said. "This was filed after hours," she said. "Our public window closes at 5, but authorized parties with existing accounts can file electronically until 7. The account used to file this document belongs to a property transfer services company registered in this county." She paused. "Registered 14 months ago." I thought about my brother. I thought about 18 months ago. Investor in the property market, the way he had said it like he had done research. "Do you have a name on the account?" I said. She didn't answer that directly. What she said was, "I'm going to flag this document for administrative review and contact our county attorney. I'm also going to ask you to not leave town and to get legal representation immediately if you don't already have some." "I spoke with an attorney an hour ago," I said. Something in Diane Marsh's expression settled, not relief exactly, but something like it, like things were at least moving in the right direction. "Good," she said. "I'm also going to give you a number to call." She wrote it on a small piece of county letterhead. "This is the county sheriff's fraud unit. What has happened here, if what you're telling me is accurate, constitutes deed fraud. That is a felony in this state." I folded the paper and put it in my jacket pocket. My hands were not shaking anymore. I don't know exactly when they had stopped. I got the certified copies. I got the flagging notation on the record. I thanked Diane Marsh, who nodded at me with the efficient warmth of someone who had just done something that mattered and knew it. I called the attorney from the parking lot. She had already been doing her own research. The property transfer services company that filed the deed, she had found the registration. The registered agent was a name I didn't recognize, but the mailing address on the registration was an apartment building across town. She had already cross-referenced the address. My brother had lived there for 11 months. I sat with that for a moment. I drove home. I did not call my brother. I did not call my sister. I sat at my kitchen table with the certified copies and the screenshot and the original deed from the fireproof box, and I wrote down everything I remembered, every date, every conversation, every detail in the Notes app on my phone, and then emailed it to myself as a time-stamped record. My daughter was at her father's that week. I was grateful for that. At 8:47 inches the evening, my phone rang. It was my brother. "Hey," he said, the way he always said, "Hey, easy," like nothing was happening. "You got a minute? Tell me what you did," I said. A pause. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about. Tell me what you did," I said again. "Because I've already been to the recorder's office. I already have a certified copy. I already spoke to an attorney. And I already have the fraud unit's number in my pocket. So you can talk to me now, or you can talk to them first. Your choice." Another pause. Longer this time. "I was trying to help us," he said. And the thing that hit me, the thing that landed in my chest like a stone, was that he sounded like he meant it. He sounded genuinely aggrieved. He said us like there was a shared situation I had been selfishly ignoring. He said he had found a buyer. He said the offer was good. He said I could have had a fresh start instead of being tied to a house that was holding me back, and all he had needed was my name on the paperwork. "You forged my signature," I said. "I used an old document," he said, "to fill in a new one. You'd already signed your name. It wasn't." "You forged my signature," I said again, "on a legal document, filed it with the county, and then listed my house for sale without my knowledge or consent." Silence. "There's a buyer," he said. "There's a real buyer. There's already an offer." I hung up. I forwarded the fraud unit number to my attorney along with everything I had. She responded within 20 minutes. She had already been in contact with an investigator she knew there. She told me to change the locks in the morning, she would handle the paperwork for the lockbox removal, and to document everything. I changed the locks that night. I stood in my kitchen with the new keys in my hand, and I looked at my daughter's drawings on the refrigerator and the purple welcome mat in the hall and the fireproof box back in its place in my closet. I thought about 7 years of mortgage payments. I thought about the summer I spent building the raised garden beds, alone, with a YouTube tutorial and a rented post-hole digger and hands that blistered by the end of the first day. I thought about the way my brother said us like I owed him something I had never agreed to. I thought about Diane Marsh, who had lowered her voice and looked at me directly and said, "I need to get my supervisor," who had given me a piece of paper and told me it mattered. I thought about my attorney, who answered her phone on a Friday evening and responded to my emails at 9 p.m. I had done everything right. I had built something real. And when someone tried to take it apart, other people, strangers, had stood up and said, "This is not how this works." I slept better than I expected to. The fraud unit investigator contacted me the following Monday. Her name was Carla Webb, and she had been handling deed fraud cases for 9 years, and she had a way of asking questions that made you feel like the facts themselves were organizing into something useful just by being said out loud. I told her everything. She took notes. She asked about the property transfer company, about the notary, about the timeline of when my brother had first approached me about selling. 14 months, I told her. The company was registered 14 months ago. She nodded and wrote something down. "This was planned," she said, not accusingly, just noting a fact. "Yes," I said. "That matters legally," she said. "Premeditation and the length of the scheme affect the charges." The notary, it turned out, had a complaint already on file with the State Notary Commission, a different fraud case, different county, 18 months prior. My brother had found someone dirty and used them. The buyer he had found turned out to be real, a young couple who had no idea the listing was fraudulent, who had put in an offer in good faith and were, when everything unraveled, shocked and relieved in equal measure that they had not yet signed anything binding. My attorney filed an emergency motion to void the quitclaim deed. The county recorder's office cooperated fully. The deed was invalidated within 10 days of the original flag. The property transfer company's account was suspended pending investigation. My brother was arrested on a Tuesday morning, 6 weeks after I first saw that lockbox on my door. He was charged with felony deed, fraud, forgery, and filing a false instrument. His attorney, a real one, not a forged document, argued that he had meant to make things right eventually, that there had been a miscommunication. The judge was not moved by this. Neither was I. I was not in the courtroom when he was sentenced. My attorney kept me informed. 3 years probation, restitution for legal fees, and a permanent felony record that would follow him into every job application, every lease agreement, every background check for the rest of his life. No prison time, which frustrated some people who knew the story. But the record, the permanent, documented, public record that said this is what he did felt like enough. It felt like truth existing somewhere outside my own memory, where no one could revise it or explain it away. My sister called me 2 days after the sentencing. She said she hadn't known it would go that far. She said she hoped we could eventually move past it. I told her I needed time. What I didn't tell her because it wasn't her business, not yet, maybe not ever, was that I had already started moving. Not away, forward. I planted tomatoes in the raised garden beds that spring, the first ones I had grown from seed instead of transplants, and I watched them take longer to come up and be sturdier when they did. My daughter came home from her father's that weekend and helped me water them, and she stood in the backyard in her rubber boots and said the yard smelled like outside, which is exactly what she always says. And I stood there in the afternoon light and thought about what it means to own something. Not the legal definition, the real one. It means you showed up every day. It means you paid for it with years, not just money. It means it holds the shape of your life in a way that no forged document can transfer and no filed deed can relocate, because the thing they tried to sell wasn't the house. It was the evidence that I had built something without anyone's help. And that they could not touch. The lockbox is gone. The new keys are on a hook by the door. Mrs. Alderman's beagle is back at the fence every evening when I pull in. Some things hold. I want you to remember something from this story, not the fraud, not the arrest, not the legal process, though all of that matters. What I want you to hold on to is the moment in the county recorder's office when a woman I had never met took off her reading glasses and said, "I need to get my supervisor," because something was wrong, and she saw it, and she did something about it. I want you to remember that not everyone who helps you knows you. Some people just know right from wrong, and they act on it, and that action reaches further than they will ever know. If you are someone who has ever built something, a home, a business, a life, and felt the ground shift under it when someone you trusted decided to treat your work like it was theirs to sell, you are not alone in this, and you are not without options. Document everything. Find the Diane Marshes. Find the Carla Webbs. They are out there. They are watching, and they have the authority to do something about what they see. Take care of yourselves, and take care of your paperwork.